Hello everyone and welcome back to another Minecraft video. This is tips and tricks for the update Aquatic Minecraft 1.13, which I've been playing a lot of lately in survival Minecraft. Really been enjoying it and coming across loads of useful tips and tricks that I wanted to then put into a video for all of you. Now, a lot of this stuff is relatively simple and related to the early game. Maybe, like me, you find yourself on a starter island like this. There's no cows and pigs around, and there are some trees you can get apples from, but one of the things I learned is that a great source of food is out here in the ocean. Now, the ocean is full of new and useful things, and one of those things are fish. It never takes too long to find a school of them swimming around, and you can pretty much one-hit kill them with a stone sword. So it's a really good source of food right at the beginning of the game. One of the cool things about this update is that items float in water, which means after you're done killing the fish underwater, if you miss any of the drops, you can just come back to the surface and pick up more of your food. So, early game, you've done a little bit of digging underground, you've gotten yourself some furnaces and some fuel to cook up your food, and maybe you're looking for an alternative source of fuel. Again, the ocean is full of useful things. There is kelp down here which can be smelted into dried kelp, and then that dried kelp can be turned into a block which can be used to smelt 20 items at once. So swimming underwater, you can come down here and you can break the kelp, and once again all of the items of the kelp that you don't pick up are just going to go to the surface, so then you can spend some time collecting these items and then use them for smelting. And look at this, it doesn't take long to get a lot of this stuff. I'd also recommend using a boat to pick this up because you'll be able to swim around a lot faster. And now that we got a bunch of dried kelp from our furnaces, we can create the fuel, like I was telling you, and then we can use that to smelt even more kelp. But here's the cool thing, the dried kelp is also a source of food, so that's two really easy early game food sources from the ocean. The next thing we're going to do is explore the ocean for shipwrecks and for ocean ruins as well. One of the things you'll always encounter when exploring are drowns. They can be quite troublesome. In fact, there is one right here swimming up to kill me, and I want to show you a really cool method for dealing with them, okay? Let them come to the surface, then just place down a boat in front of them. They're going to sit in the boat, and if it's daytime, they are slowly going to burn to death, which is a very easy way of dealing with them without having to fight them. Now, if the drowned has a trident, this is a whole other game. Look how many hearts he does when he attacks me. I've got iron armor on, and you can be in trouble pretty quickly with these fellas, so I highly recommend bringing a shield, as the trident is going to get blocked by the shield. But in all reality, if you come across a drowned with a trident, the best thing to do is get away from it, especially early game. Well, I thought I'd put my skills to the test, try and take on the drowned with the trident, and I didn't do very well. But if you die when you're out there in the ocean, things are not as bad as they often are when you die, because your items are going to come all the way back to the surface, which means that collecting them is much, much easier. Of course, you've got to watch out for the drowns that still might be in the area, but you could whiz around on a boat and pick all of this stuff up nice and easy. Let's not get distracted any further. It is time for us to explore and find some ocean ruins and shipwrecks. And it is as simple as hopping in your boat and looking out in the ocean. You don't have to do anything fancy because these things are actually really quite common. There's two things you want to look out for. One are lights and big shapes under the water that kind of stick out. And the other thing is to look off into the distance where the world isn't rendered. And often you'll see shapes and structures popping up in the distance. And that can give you a pretty good hint as to where to go to. Now, there is a light underground, and that means it's probably a ocean ruin. There are two types of light that you can have here. There are the sea lanterns and also magma blocks. Now, magma blocks can damage you, but they are actually our friends. So check this out. We found a cluster and a shipwreck. A cluster of ocean ruins and a shipwreck right next to each other. If I go down onto this magma block and hold shift, I don't actually take any damage whatsoever. I look kind of ridiculous, but I am trapped in the bubble column here. Excuse me, I'm trying to record a video, young man. And when you're in the bubble column, you don't need to return to the surface to breathe. So if you can find yourself a good magma block and hold shift on it, you'll be able to breathe forever. And then you can just hang out down here. There we go. Now the ocean ruins will always spawn into the world with some drowns in them, so you can always expect to find a few down here. Let's quickly get onto this block before I take too much damage. And now that we're on here, we can start looking for the treasure chest, as each of these structures usually has a treasure chest. Now I'm down here holding shift and I can just stay in the same position and start to dig away all of these blocks, and it's usually underneath sand that you'll find the treasure chest. And there it is. So let's open up this one and see what type of treasure chest it is. It's not particularly great. It does have a fishing rod, and wow, that one's got mending on it. For the sake of visibility in this video, I've given myself conduit power. So now we can see what's going on, and I'd like to take a moment just to explain the loot tables. There are two different ones for the ocean ruins. There are big ocean ruins and small ocean ruins, and for the most part they have the same loot. Now one of the things the big ocean ruins can have is golden nuggets. You may see a few of those as well. But when it comes to the main bit of loot that we're looking for, which is the buried treasure map, that is a unique item that you can only get one of. You can get a buried treasure map or an enchanted fishing rod or a golden helmet or a leather, and if it's one of the big structures like this, there's also a chance you can get a random enchantment on a book or a golden apple. So I've explored each of these ruins and I'm collecting the buried treasure maps, and unfortunately the buried treasure map system in this game isn't particularly great. It is quite likely that because we've got all four of these in the same area, that when we open them they're all going to point to the same buried treasure. So let's have a look. There we go, that's what the map looks like, and the next one is identical, and let's guess that the next two are going to be the same buried treasure map as well. So that kind of sucks, but the idea is generally to do a lot of exploring and travel a lot of distance. So if you want to get a different map, you really do need to travel to an entirely new area and find yourself a new buried treasure map. So inside the shipwreck there are 3 different chests with 3 different types of loot. One of those will be a buried treasure map, and it's probably going to be the exact same one we've seen already. So you'll have one in the middle and then one on either side. This is where one on the furthest side can be found. Of course, this ship has been flipped upside down, and this is where you have your not so good loot, although you can get some enchanted leather armor, and that one has Curse of Binding, which pretty much sucks. Then you have the chest that's in the middle. This is the one that's going to have the buried treasure map as well as some maps and paper as well. Let's go ahead and look at this thing. Yep, it's the exact same one as the others. And then inside the main room of the ship down here, you can see we can get into it because there are quite a few blocks missing on the shape of the ship. This is where you get your main loot. In here you can get lapis, you can get gold, emeralds, and of course diamonds. In our case we got 1 diamond, but you can also get golden nuggets, iron nuggets, and lots of iron. And I should have mentioned this already, but you should always bring your magma block with you. As you can place it down, you'll be inside of the bubble column. That will allow you to breathe. One important thing though, you will need iron tools if you want to bring this magma block with you. If you break it with a stone pick, the block is unfortunately going to be destroyed. But this is a great way of exploring. You can just look around under the water, and then whenever you need to breathe, just place this thing down and pop yourself on top of it. While we're on the topic of magma blocks, these things will spawn in ravines in the oceans, and they might be terrifying because the bubbles can actually take down your boats. But what you'll notice is that there is food on the surface here. These things can actually be a really good source of food because fish will spawn, they'll swim into the bubble columns, and they'll get sucked downwards like we are doing right now. But of course when we get sucked downwards we can breathe, so we can actually go all the way to the bottom here safely. And you'll see that loads of fish have been sucked down, and then they've died on the magma blocks, and so these things can actually be a source of food. Now let's get back to finding our buried treasure. We need to orient ourselves the same way as the map so we know where we're going. If you press F3 you can see that we are facing north. So if I were to go north, we would be going away from the buried treasure. The reason we know that is because there is the dot in the top left of the screen. So if I am to go east and swim in this direction, then we should see that dot starts to move across. Now the size of the dot tells you how close to the map you are. If that dot is very small, it means you're probably a long way away. Now if we go a little bit further along, we are probably now in line with the treasure. So now what we want to do is go south and swim in this direction. This part is always very exciting. The map has revealed itself and we can see exactly where to go it is somewhere directly in front of us. Now, when it comes to finding the treasure, it's always going to be buried under sand. That is very important. The other thing you want to try and do is get yourself in the center of that X as best as you can. So I think I'm going to nudge myself over here a little bit, move forward a little bit further, and now I believe it is somewhere directly below us. So all we can do at this point is start digging. And there it is. There is our buried treasure. Wow, that took me some time to find. It will be exactly where the X is, but it's always a little tricky to pinpoint that. And you can see here, I started digging in the wrong direction. I guess it's a good idea to look where you're digging and pull out the map. If I were looking here, I could clearly see I was going in the wrong direction. So anyway, let's open up the chest and have a look at what we get. Loads of beautiful, beautiful treasure. You can get diamonds in these chests, obviously the emeralds, gold, and iron ingots, but the most important thing is that you get yourself the heart of the sea. With our buried treasure raided, you might think it would be courtesy to destroy the chest so the game accidentally doesn't send players here again. That is unfortunately not how it works. If I were to generate another buried treasure map, it could actually point to this exact location. So if you're playing on a server with other people, or maybe even in a single player world and you forget that you've been to a place before, maybe it's good to mark a place where buried treasure has been dug by leaving some blocks directly behind. There's also a tip I recommend for shipwrecks as well. If you see the logs, then go ahead and just strip them with your axe, and maybe that can signify to other players that you have already been here. Now, something I don't recommend doing in this game is working with the dolphins. When you're around them, they can give you the dolphin's grace effect, which allows you to swim faster, and they are drawn to players that are in boats. So if you're looking for dolphins, get in a boat, go swimming, and you're more likely to find them that way. But if you feed them cod, they can lead you to ocean ruins and treasure. I actually consider this to be really quite slow, tedious, and also unreliable. And if you just get in your boat and explore, you'll find tons of stuff really quickly. So I don't recommend using the dolphins, even though they are kind of adorable. My final tip for this video is definitely the most cheaty, and it's not for every player, but it is extremely useful to use the debugging option to show hitboxes. The ocean becomes a different place when you've got this on, as all of a sudden things become a lot clearer and more visible. It's also going to help you when farming to be able to actually hit the fish because you've got their hitbox on display. And also if you're trying to collect items and stuff, those will also have these things around them as well as entities. So it's a little bit on the cheaty side, but it can be very useful in certain situations. And that's all my tips and tricks for this video. If you want to know more about Minecraft 1.13, check out the Do You Know Minecraft video listed on the screen. And I guess that's it from me this video, so if you enjoyed it, leave a like. As always, thank you for your support. If you're not subscribed to the channel, then consider doing so for more 1.13 related videos. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon with another one. Bye bye.